In Chifeng, Inner Mongolia, there is a phenomenon known as Zhuang, which currently does not have a corresponding medical condition name, and this phenomenon mostly occurs in rural areas. Elderly people in Chifeng have seen it to varying degrees. Today's story comes from a netizen named Lei. This Zhuang is different from what we usually refer to as being possessed. A typical Zhuang has only one symptom, an insatiable appetite, eating while cursing, uttering obscenities, and explicitly stating what dishes they want to eat, and they leave once they are full. This Zhuang usually happens around dinner time in the evening. Locally, people are not sure what the so-called rabbit spirit really is, it's just a common name. There are two methods to break the spell. One is to use red chopsticks to pinch the Zhuang on the middle finger, and the other is to prick the person or press the Zhuang person on the back, find a small bump that can walk, and prick it with a needle. Once the bump disperses, the person is cured. A few years ago, Lazy Eye was having dinner and chatting with local media department staff, and the editor-in-chief of the evening newspaper brought up the topic of Zhuang. He said that although he does not believe in any ghosts or monsters in this world, he believes in the rabbit spirit. At that time, his third uncle was a cripple who could not walk without a cane. On that occasion, his third uncle was possessed by the rabbit spirit and ran so fast that he jumped over a courtyard wall that was more than one person high, which was an eye-opener. At that time, after the editor-in-chief finished speaking, everyone just looked at each other and smiled, not taking it too seriously. It wasn't until a few years later that someone close to Lazy Eye also encountered a guest. In 2016, at the Yuhai home community on the edge of Lingxi County, the person who was Zhuang was Lazy Eye's second brother-in-law, who was a driver. That night, at 9:30 p.m., his brother-in-law finished work, mainly because Lazy Eye was working locally and staying at his second sister's house. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, so the brother-in-law personally cooked a table of dishes and chatted with Lazy Eye over drinks. The second brother-in-law was also there, and the two children had gone to bed early because they had school the next day. Around 11:30 p.m., his brother-in-law suddenly shook his head and said to his second sister, "I feel like there's something in our house." His second sister was confused and didn't think there was anything unusual in the room. The brother-in-law said he felt like his grandparents had come, but his grandparents had passed away earlier that day. Then the brother-in-law started rummaging through the cabinets, found some incense, took a bowl, filled it with rice, lit the incense and placed it in the bowl, then put it at the door and kowtowed to the door. As he was kowtowing, the brother-in-law suddenly stopped, looked very painful, and said to his second sister, "No, these are not grandparents, they wouldn't torment me like this." Then the brother-in-law began to roll around on the ground in pain. Lazy Eye was confused by his brother-in-law's strange behavior and went up to pat his shoulder, asking, "Brother, what's wrong with you? Are you okay?" Unexpectedly, his brother-in-law stood up at once, ignoring everyone. He walked to the table with a strange smile, sat down on the stool directly, and said, "This dish is not enough. Buy a few more," and then began to eat ravenously. There were a total of 8 dishes on the table at that time, and they were quickly eaten by the brother-in-law. During this time, Lazy Eye and his second sister talked to him, but he was unreasonable and just kept eating. His second sister was very scared at the time and asked Lazy Eye, "Sister, how did your brother-in-law do that? Don't overeat." Although Lazy Eye was very confused, he had heard some things about Zhuang, so he pulled his sister aside and said, "Sister, your husband should be Zhuang. Go find me a needle." The second sister sneaked to get a needle and gave it to Lazy Eye. Lazy Eye sat next to his brother-in-law, one hand started pouring wine, "Brother, don't just eat, let's have a drink together." The other hand was hidden behind, ready to prick his brother-in-law at any time. As a result, his brother-in-law pushed Lazy Eye away, saying, "What are you doing? Don't think I don't know you have a needle in your hand, stay away from me, buy me a few more dishes, I'll leave after I'm full, I want to eat pig's ears." Lazy Eye was seen through by his brother-in-law and didn't hide it anymore, so he rushed at his brother-in-law with the needle. His brother-in-law began to push Lazy Eye. His brother-in-law weighed 180 jin, about 90 kilograms, and as a professional driver, he was quite strong. Lazy Eye only weighed a little more than 120 jin, about 60 kilograms, and if they really fought, he would definitely not be a match. However, the brother-in-law, who was Zhuang, did not take the initiative to attack people, that is to say, he was always passively defending and pushing. Most of the time, they started a tug of war. The tables and chairs were overturned, and the two children woke up. The second sister was taking care of the two children on the side. Lazy Eye and his brother-in-law were tearing and scolding each other. "If you don't leave, I will kill you today, you dog thing is endless. I'll leave after I'm full, buy me pig's ears." During this period, there were various dirty words, and the two people tore from the ground to the bed, from the bed to the ground. Lazy Eye thought he couldn't prick his brother-in-law, so he pricked wherever he could, pricking randomly. His brother-in-law just pushed and dodged, so it wasn't until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning that both were tired, fell on the bed, and fell asleep, cursing each other. Lazy Eye woke up at 10 o'clock in the morning. When he woke up, he looked at his sleeping brother-in-law for a while. His brother-in-law woke up immediately, probably awakened by the pain. At this time, his brother-in-law obviously returned to normal. But he didn't know what happened the night before. He just felt very tired, so he didn't drive and rested at home for a few days. Lazy Eye also saw the Zhuang for real. But after that, his brother-in-law never had any other strange things happen. Do you have any interesting strange things in your local area to share with me? Well, see you in the next story.